Welcome to Johnny Likes. Today I'm going to talk about remakes. Dear Hollywood, I got a favor to ask. Could you stop remaking movies that were really good to begin with that people already like? So often I hear about a remake and go, but why? Why would you remake something that was so good to begin with? You're just setting yourself up to fail, both creatively and often financially. You're not going to live up to the original. I think the point of remakes should be to improve upon the original where maybe it didn't quite get there. Rather than seeing butchered versions of classic movies, I'd rather see better versions of crappy movies. I want to see remakes where they fix things that didn't work in the original version. I want to see remakes of movies that had super cool ideas, but just flubbed the execution. And I want to see fresh takes on old stories. First off, here's some examples of what I consider to be quality remakes. Number 1, Dread. Many people, myself included, prefer this version to the 90s version with Sylvester Stallone. It's probably because they improved upon every aspect of the original. Hot take, I know. Number 2. This one's a little bit more obscure, but Sleuth. I thought the twists, performances, and pacing were heads above what they did in the original. It's just overall a really good remake that fell through the cracks. Number 3. The Invisible Man. It's a great modernization of a classic tale. It takes a cool idea that's been adapted several times and gave it a fresh modern take. Here's 10 movies that I think should be remade because they had a cool idea or good source material, and they just got messed up somewhere along the way. So after you've checked out the list, feel free to shoot me a like and subscribe if you're feeling it. It is quick, free, and relatively painless. Anyway, let's get to the list. I like the idea of Johnny Mnemonic a lot, and the first 20 minutes or so of the original are pretty good, but it was all downhill from there. I do, however, think that the concept of the film, a cyberpunk courier who has cybernetics in his brains transporting a bunch of data, it's a solid basis for a thriller or an action movie. If you had the right people involved, it could be a lot of fun. It's the perfect example of a movie that had a really good idea that just flubbed the execution. A horror comedy about a black vampire living in New York who has to find a bride. The problem with the original was that it was just so bland, despite it starring Eddie Murphy and Angela Bassett and having Wes Craven behind the camera. You gotta make it scarier, make it funnier, make it sexier, make it edgier. You could do a gender swap and have the female vampire needing to find a groom instead. And I wouldn't mind seeing maybe Tandy Newton or Rosario Dawson as a vampire. Just saying, for doing some fantasy casting, why not? Or you could just remake the original with a better script. But I think there's potential there. I hated this movie, and it's pretty much the only overwhelmingly negative review I've done on the channel thus far, but I thought that it had a fun concept, which is why I watched it in the first place. Dude has to survive 65 million years ago alongside dinosaurs. It's a good idea. But maybe instead of making it about aliens who crash landed on Earth, maybe make it a time travel movie where a guy has to survive on his wits alone and figure out how to get back to his own time using some science. Kind of like The Martian, but with time travel and dinosaurs instead of Mars. If you were going really nuts, you could turn it into a Planet of the Apes movie where once he gets back home, everyone's apes due to the butterfly effect. That could be pretty wild. Or you could even throw the Predator into the mix, and it could be a prehistoric Predator movie. Why not? So much potential in the batshit plot of this movie. Alien drone swarms. The moon is a superstructure made by aliens billions of years ago. The moon's orbit is collapsing and it's going to crash into Earth. And I feel like there is a great bad movie in there instead of the so bad that it's not even fun movie that we actually got. I just kind of wish that it had been done right the first time. But it just had too many ideas, and they should have axed several. Maybe just stick with the moon is a superstructure or the moon's orbit's collapsing. So basically what I'm saying is that someone should rip off the already ripped off ideas and make a better version of this movie. I don't really like the Phantasm movies all that much, but I can see the appeal and the potential there. The mysterious and creepy tall man who's robbing graveyards and is using interdimensional gadgets to kill people. That's a pretty cool idea. You just need someone who cares about the project and kind of knows what they're doing. You wouldn't need a huge budget. The first one or the sequels never had it. I just think that it needs a little bit of tightening up and maybe a little bit more modern take. But the potential is for sure there, and it's one of the few horror franchises that hasn't had a reboot or remake yet. How do you mess up a Catwoman film this badly? I don't know. I figure all you really need is a pretty lady in a catsuit who is robbing people. I'd say lean into the heist aspect. She could steal from a big bad from the comics, like Lex Luthor or one of the other famous villains. You could add in Poison Ivy or Harley Quinn or Batgirl or any of the other lady heroes, and it could be a better version of that Harley Quinn movie. This should be the easiest thing in the world to do, and for the life of me, I can't figure out why there hasn't been another Catwoman movie. You'd think that they would just try it once a decade until they get it right, kind of like the Fantastic Four. Biggest problem with this one for me was the casting. I actually mostly enjoyed the rest of the movie. It had its problems, but I overall had fun. The main guy, though, Dan DeHaan, I believe is the actor's name. The problem is he's pale, he's got no charm, and he exudes zero sex appeal. And he's supposed to be this swashbuckling, handsome dude. In my opinion, they just should have had Cara Delevingne be the womanizing, swashbuckling type. It seems more natural and makes more sense to me. But I thought there was so much potential here, and there was some very creative and cool ideas. It was visually great to look at. So I think that if they were to remake it, I would actually prefer it in animated form. They could do an anime or some other style of animation. But I think that would really feed into the visual element that the story has going on for it. This was a series of young adult novels that they tried to shove into 2 hours worth of movie when there's clearly way more than that worth of story. It was chock full of cool and imaginative ideas, but it just felt way too rushed for a single movie format. I don't think it was a terrible movie, but I think that there is loads of room for improvement. The walking cities involving magic and political intrigue, it's a good concept, and I think it's worth giving another shot. Maybe this one could do with a series instead of just a single movie, though. One of, if not the worst adaptations of Stephen King's work. His magnum opus got turned into a pile of steaming liquid dog shit. It was such a letdown. I was so excited when I heard that this was going to be a movie and that they had Matthew McConaughey as Flag. I thought that was great casting. I was a little bit more tentative about Idris Elba as Roland, but I like Elba and I was willing to give him a chance. I was trying to keep an open mind about it. When I finally saw the movie, though, I was just mad at how bad it was. It was like a poorly done version of the Cole's Notes of the books, is kind of my thoughts on it. And King deserves better. Luckily, Mike Flanagan has actually been in development talks for a while now, trying to get this turned into a series, I believe. Of all the movies on this list, this is the one most likely to actually get the redemptive treatment. A horror comedy starring the Foo Fighters as the Foo Fighters? That's a great premise. Problem was, I don't think the movie knew quite what it wanted to be. I wanted more music slash band humor and more death and gore in the movie. The guys in the band were hit and miss in front of the camera. Grohl and Hawkins seemed kind of comfortable, but the other guys, not so much. If it was to be remade, I would want a different band, obviously. There's different members now. But I would want a band where everyone can sort of act and is comfortable in front of the camera. Maybe they have some comedic timing, that sort of thing. Ideally, it would be a metal band, but if you couldn't do any of that, just make up a band and use actors. Or hire actors to play a real band. What I'm kind of thinking is just a live-action Metalocalypse. I think that could work. So that's the official list. Here are my honorable mentions. These are ones that don't quite fit with the others. First up, Quest for Fire. This one doesn't fit because I think it's nearly perfect for what it is. I'd want to see it remade because in the last 45 years we've learned a lot more about how complex humanity's origins really are. and it'd be just neat to see a scientifically accurate, updated retelling of the tale. Number 2, Rise of Skywalker. This was terrible and never should have seen the light of day. Everyone knows it. Just pretend that this movie never happened and just give us a different ending to the saga. Like Palpatine's back somehow and raise his grandkid. Get out of here. It still pisses me off how bad this was, and although it'll never happen, a boy can dream. Just Marvel movies in general. Take your pick for which one you think should be remade. My vote is for Doctor Strange and the Madness Multiverse, whatever that one was called. I actually kind of liked this movie. I had more fun with it than I thought I would. My problem is that there was so much potential there, and it just kind of seemed squandered. You've got legendary horror director Sam Raimi behind the lens. Why not let him make an actual R-rated horror movie instead of the PG-13 level teasing stuff that they gave us? Also, Wanda shouldn't have been looking for her imaginary kids. She should have been looking for her brother Quicksilver, who, in case you forgot, actually died on screen in Age of Ultron and was a big emotional moment for her. That would make way more sense. So that's my little rant on remakes. Which, by the way, even though I know they're mostly just cash grabs preying on my nostalgia, I don't hate remakes. I actually usually watch them and often have fun with them. I just think that when you're doing them, the goal should be to make something better than the original, instead of just trying to get a quick paycheck. So those are my picks for the types of movies that I think should actually be remade. I encourage you to leave your thoughts on my picks in the comments, and leave your own picks saying why. So thanks for watching me talk about movies for a little bit, and you can tune in next time to see what else Johnny likes.